biggest challenge that I face as Vice Chancellor and that the university faces is the transformation of the staff body, the academic staff. The student body has transformed, I think, quite successfully thus far. A little way to go still, but by and large, we're achieving our goals. But at the level of professors, for example, and associate professors, it's still very largely white and male. And it'll take time, and it'll take a long time to change. Part of that is just the timeline that it takes to achieve that in an academic career. So the proportion of black PhDs only started changing in the late 1990s, where we start getting more black PhDs. In other words, 6 or more years after 1994. From the time of getting your PhD, you normally become a postdoc, then a junior lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor. That is usually a 20-year career path. And so if the profile of PhDs was starting to change around 2000, the profile of professors is unlikely to start changing until 2020. And even then, it'll just be the beginning of the change. So I think it's going to take us 2020, 2030 before we start seeing a real dent on that demography. But we're all impatient. We're impatient in part because it seems unfair that 20 years nearly after 1994, after the democratic change, that we should still have only 10 or 12% of our professors being South African black professors. We're also impatient because it's so important to have role models for the next generation, so people don't even aspire to academic careers, to doing PhDs and postdocs, if they don't identify with those career paths and feel that it's possible and desirable. And so, for example, we do recruit quite a lot of black academics from the rest of the continent, which is important as role modeling, although it doesn't strictly count as transformation because it's not redress with respect to South African blacks who have previously been disadvantaged and who one would like to bring into those positions now. So at one level, I just have to accept that it's a slow process and it's going to take longer than we would like. But we do have interventions to try to accelerate that career path so that we make it shorter than 20 years, maybe 10 years. For example, we have special research development programs. We'll encourage people to take sabbaticals much more frequently. We might release them from teaching loads so that they can accumulate more publications at an earlier stage in their career. We're more diligent about appointing mentors, and we often will retain a retired professor specifically to be a mentor for a group of young black or women academics, to give them more time and attention. We'll be more likely to fund them to attend international conferences, even if they're not presenting papers. Normally, an academic would only go to an international conference every second year, and only if they're presenting a paper. But we feel that international exposure is part of career development, and so we would have we would offer those opportunities to emerging researchers, emerging academics earlier, and without the same constraints. So we do try to address it, and a very big part of this is just something I mentioned before, the culture of the institution, whether people feel that they are valued, whether they feel at home, or whether they feel that they don't belong. And some of that will only change when the numbers change, but some can be addressed through programs such as multicultural workshop interventions, and we do a lot of that. Also creating safety valves. So we have an office of an ombud. Anyone who feels that they're not getting a fair deal or being can approach the ombud. We have an office of sexual and racial discrimination, which is specifically to encourage people to come and talk, and to, if they're feeling uncomfortable about or if they have a concern about racial discrimination, and for us to ensure that the university addresses it where it's happening. So it's my biggest challenge. It's probably the area where I have least success, but that's not for want of putting quite a lot of resources and energy into that.